Unsyndicated presents What the Puck with Sean Baligian.
Hi, welcome into another edition of What the Puck. So glad you could join us. So much going on in the National Hockey League right now, but one of the things we're talking about, this alumni series, was just a fantastic idea. In case you missed the first game in April out at Big Boy Arena in Fraser, the Bruins Wings put on an unbelievable show. There's another one coming up April 27th at Big Boy Arena. Wings are taking on the Rangers. And I'll tell you what, the Rangers, they are bringing the heavyweights. No heavyweight bigger than our guest tonight, the one, the only, Chris Knuckles Nyland. If you haven't checked out the Raw Knuckles podcast yet, you are missing out. The stories are unbelievable, and it is indeed a pleasure to talk to Chris Nyland tonight. Knuckles, how are you, bud?
I'm good, Sean. Mike, how are you? How's it going?
Fantastic. Hey, let's start with this alumni game. You had a brief time with the Rangers, but the hockey community is indeed a family. So many good friends, guys that you played with in New York, guys that you even played with in Montreal. This has got to be a blast for you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know, listen, I would have loved to play, but I had my knee replaced, and you know, I don't have full flexion in it. If I ever fell and put all my weight on it, I'd be miserable, and I don't want to be miserable. I finally got my life where I want it, in a good place. So, it's nice. I had the opportunity to come there and coach, to be involved. It's nice. I do some of that with the Canadiens alumni. I still get to be around the guys, say hello, have some fun, hear all the stories, and be around what we miss the most, and that's the locker room.
It is amazing, Chris, that we haven't had more of this because, you mentioned the Canadiens alumni, Les Échanges, and, the Bruins have theirs and Flyers. Lots of teams have theirs. I'm surprised that there hasn't been an idea like this to do an alumni cup series because you're exactly right. Hey, you know what? You get the boys back out on the ice and some of that old competitiveness and some of those rivalries really show, and they put on a show for everybody.
Listen, we did it a few years back against the Nordiques. We had a home and home series, Canadiens in the Nordiques, and Wilf Paymont came across the middle and hit Ryan Walter and ended up breaking his ribs. And we're playing the game for fun. You know, it really wasn't that nice a gesture by Wilfie, but you know what happens? You get out there and, we had two really competitive games. We played one in the Colisée in Quebec and one in Montreal. And the guys hated each other when we played. And then we're out there now. A couple of times there was some nasty shit going on. But as long as we can kind of put that aside with this stuff, and I'm sure now but that was an accident waiting to happen, to be honest with you. And I played, I think, in a game in Detroit once, with the Bruins alumni or the Habs. I think maybe that with the Habs, because I was there. Lee Norwood was playing that game. It was a few years back, and we played at the Joe, and it was awesome. We had a great time, a lot of fun afterwards, and so these are fun times, and original six teams. There's nothing like it. There's another. A couple other teams. If you look at Philly and St. Louis, when you think original six, yeah, they're not original six, but those are teams been around a lot, great alumni, really great fan bases, all that. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Looking forward to it.
Chris, it's amazing. I want to get back to Quebec in just a second, and maybe there's some people out there that aren't aware of the relationship that you had with some Red Wings as well, and we'll touch on that. But I think what's always amazed me is, you are a Boston boy through and through. There's no doubt about it. Grew up there, played at Northeastern, grew up a huge Bruins fan. And Mike and I were talking about this before the show. This is like at the height of the Wings-Avs rivalry, a kid from Detroit being drafted by Colorado. When you were drafted, that may have been the height of the Montreal-Boston rivalry.
No.
going through your head when you got drafted by the Habs? You had to have been sitting there going, "Are you kidding me?" Or were you just, "Hey, I'm happy to be drafted"?
First of all, I was in shock that I got drafted, but little known fact is a good friend, a coach of mine growing up, Judge Paul King, was good friends with Dickie Moore and Doug Harvey.
Mm.
And I only found out after the judge passed away. He was my coach. He was like a second dad to me in a lot of ways. And he saw something in me that he saw in me. And he went to Dickie and Doug and said, listen, I want the Canadiens to draft this kid. Can you do me a favor and just draft him? And, I found this out at the judge's funeral from Dickie Moore. And he said, the judge never wanted me to tell you, but you were drafted as a favor to him.
Wow.
By the Canadiens. And that's why I was drafted. I was drafted 231 out of 235. Hello. Like they were waiting around to pick me. Like it was a favor. So, the rest is history, but it just, I still didn't quit on my Bruins. I was drafted in 78 and I stayed in school one more year. And I wanted to leave, but my father said, you leave, I'll kick your ass all over it. I stayed in school one more year and I didn't even go to school. I was just playing hockey. I just wanted to play pro hockey. And, I was still rooting for the Bruins that year when they lost. You had too many men in the ice. Lafleur, Lambert scores the winner. And I was brokenhearted, cause I wanted to see the Bruins finally beat them. And, then, I got drafted. I got a letter in the mail 2 weeks later where I invite you to training camp. And something, it wasn't like it is today. You go there and always with your mom and dad. I totaled my car the night I got drafted. And,
Oh, great. Nice. So Chris, you started back in 1979 with Nova Scotia and the AHL. You racked up 305 penalty minutes in 49 games. Was that when you realized what your role was going to be in the NHL, or did you know earlier on that that's what you
I didn't know it was going to be that. Listen, I wanted to play hockey. I was going to play physical and tough because that's the way I played. I grew up watching the Bruins. I love that style. I am aggressive by nature. And, when I went in there, I had a 5-game tryout. I played in a couple exhibition games and almost had a fight with a guy on my team because I had a little pushing and shoving match with a guy named Bam Bam Belanger in a training camp game in Halifax. And Belanger, I come back to the bench and Dave Allison, I don't know if you remember the name of his defense with Big Red. And he looked down the bench when we come up and he said, hey, fucking college kid, what are you trying to start a brawl? Do you know what a brawl? I said, you don't know what a fucking brawl. You never been in a brawl. Like I've been in a brawl, motherfucker. I give it to him. And we're going on the bench and Bert Temple is behind the bench. He's loving it, right?
Yeah.
So I went the next shift and I gave it to Belanger. So now Red, he's going, a college kid that can fight. He just couldn't believe it. And he thought maybe I got lucky. So anyway, 5-game tryout, $200 a game. I sit out the first 4 games that were at home. And our first game was in Maine, Philly's farm team. Boom, my whole family comes up. Everybody's up there to watch the game. My first shift, I run Glenn Cochran. He turns around, he slashes me. And I turn around and drop the gloves. Away we go. And I cut him open bad. We both get kicked out of the game. Next day, the coach called me down the room. I thought I was in trouble. I thought I'm getting sent because I got kicked out of the game. I didn't know. I'm like, I didn't have an idea. Why does he want to talk to me? Anyway, I get down the room and he goes, hey, Chris, do you have an agent? And I said, no, I don't have an agent. He said, well, you better find one. The Canadiens want to sign your contract.
Oh,
And so that was it. That one fight got me a contract. And then once everybody in the league heard that I fought Cochran and cut him open and beat him, it was like every night someone was, wanted to try me, and away we were going. I was just fighting every night. I mean, I all 49 games. I was fighting every night. It was crazy. And, you know, I got called up because of that. And then certainly it was nice to be called up to Montreal. They were going through a transition, 4 cups in a row. Some of the guys got older. They were moving out and they needed that physicality. But, you know, it was nice to be there because they wanted me to be more than just a fighter. They wanted to help me become a player, a better player. And I was always okay player, but, I had never like lighten it up. And, I did well. I scored goals here and there, in minor hockey and all that stuff, and in college, but not ripping it up. I wasn't a superstar by any stretch. And, I had the help of great coaching staff and Claude Ruel, then
Wow.
eventually Lemaire. And, those guys worked with me. And I played with 2 Hall of Famers in Gainey and Carbonneau, who, we had a great checking line. So, yeah, it was awesome. I loved it. Loved every minute.
Chris Nyland joining us. Of course, he will be at the alumni game, Rangers Wings, April 27th at Big Boy Arena. Get your butt out there. It's great action. It's for great charities as well. Knuckles, you mentioned the alumni games against Quebec. I once asked Scotty Bowman what he thought the most fierce rivalry was in the National Hockey League. And he said, he being part of the Habs and Bruins back in the day, he thought the Wings and Avs had a little something different. But then he stopped and he said, there wasn't quite anything like a Nordique Habs thing because people maybe outside of the province didn't get it. You saw it up close and personal, one of the most famous or infamous, depending on who you're talking to, Good Friday Massacre. What was that like, that war between the Nordique and the Habs?
Yeah, it was crazy, it was just, yeah, we hated each other. It was big city Montreal, bilingual city, unilingual city in Quebec City, the Journal de Montreal, the Journal de Quebec. Who has the better poutine, who has the better hot dogs? Like, um, and it just really, the media really loved it. They loved pumping it up, and we just hated each other. And games got nasty, and yeah, but man, hockey was hockey. These kids today, man, they be calling their mother after the game. Mom, get me home. Come and help me, mom. Put the ice bag on my eye. Like they don't have a clue when you talk about physical, mean, nasty hockey. Oh, it was crazy. And they say, oh yeah, we couldn't play today. They couldn't fucking play then. Let me tell you, a lot of them. And these kids today are really talented. I don't take none of that away from 'em. The game has changed a little bit. I mean, the object is still put the puck in the net. I get that, but it's changed somewhat. But these kids are super uber talented. Um, you know, um, in the game of hockey, I just love it. And some nights it certainly resembles old hockey in the playoffs somewhat. But during the regular season, it's like it's some head scratches when I watch the game.
Right. If we go back to '84 and the Good Friday Massacre, I remember I was talking with Sean. I remember watching it with my dad and screaming at him that he had to get back in because you guys were going at it before the third period started. And I knew there was no way that third period was going to start until someone got Slager after what he did to Jean Hamel. Did
Yeah.
anyone end up getting even with him? Because I know at some point I think they pulled him off and hit him in a locker room.
No, I don't know. Listen, Louis Schlager did a couple things. We all do things I, I can only speak for myself. I did one thing I regret, and that's when I hit Rick Middleton in Boston. And we all make mistakes. Louis Schlager, I know that really bothered him for years. It was a bad thing he did. John's looking the other way. They were roommates. They were teammates. Man, that was such a bad. People blame that on Mario Tremblay. I don't blame it on Mario Tremblay. Blame it on Schlager.
Mhm.
But it's like the whole thing. Bruce Wood tried to blame it on me, but fact of the matter is, Dale Hunter had Carbonneau, my center iceman, down the head, punching him in the head, cross-checking him. What am I going to do? I'm going to try and get in there. Moeller's trying to keep me out. Screw you. I'm going to let it fly. And I hit Moeller and cut him. And next thing, the thing went a little crazy. And then I got taken off the ice, and I know Mark Hunter was trying to get Slager, like he wanted to. That Slager's lucky Hunter didn't get it, but Louis Slager, the brawl in the hall in Boston, when Linsman, I had Linsman down, and Dave Maley also was out there, and all the bodies are in the hall, but it was just me and Maley, and Louis Schlager come down. Dave Maley had, I forget, someone down, and Schlager come up and suck at him from the side. He was in street clothes, and he had a ring on his finger, and he cut him wide open. And so Schlager, he did some bad things. Does he? I'm sure he regrets them. I know he struggled a little with some stuff, but yeah, it was mean. It was nasty. Hate each other, but I still look at the Bruins. That was a little different because it's provincial, right?
Sure.
The Bruins Canadiens rivalry, it's not what it used to be because they used to see each other in the playoffs all the time. Yep. And that's where, they say those rivalries are born, but and they fester over the years. But come on, back in the day, we played 3 exhibition games against each other, or 4. Then we played 4 games in Montreal against the Bruins and 4 games in Boston. How are you not going to develop that hatred? And it's funny, I don't think the league wants that anymore because they don't want the fighting. But man, I would love to see those rivalries come back where you see them teams within your division more. We got to see Connor McDavid once a year, It's like, well, Brecken doesn't want that, right? Because they don't want the fighting. They really don't want it. And listen, I know that we're never going to see it like it was, but I still don't have a problem with 2 guys dropping their gloves in.
I don't want to skip past 86. We'll talk about the Stanley Cup in a second, but you just brought something up. I mean, I hated the Bruins. Okay, absolutely hated the Bruins. That's the way it was, as any Bruin fan probably hated the Habs. When Puddinhead set you away, and yes, I listen to the Raw Knuckles podcast incessantly, okay? When Puddinhead set you away, that is the greatest nickname in the history of mankind, by the way. I'll never forget that series in 88. You were at the Rangers, and Michael Talvin slashes Richer, breaks his, I almost swore, hand, and I'm screaming at the television, if Knuckles was there, it wouldn't have happened. If Knuckles was there, it wouldn't have happened. Series changed in that moment, Chris. I mean, once 144 went down, it was all Bruins from there. And it really was just a tough situation, I think, for the Habs at the time, because that's the kind of stuff we needed a guy like Chris Nyland, a guy that can play and a guy that's going to make you be accountable if you want to act a fool.
Yeah, listen, I really believe Serge made a mistake there. I put him in a bad situation too. I always promised myself that if a coach ever told me to fight or made that inference to me, that he was going to hear it from me because I didn't need to be told when to fight. I had a coach, Jacques Lemire, once told me, you fight too much. I'm going to give you tonight off. I didn't want the night off, but he said, you fight too much. Listen, Chris, you get room out there. You got to use that room. I want you to play too. And who tells that to a tough guy? Not many coaches. That's why I say, I think if I went somewhere else, they would have been fine with me just fighting and fight, then sit on the bench. I wouldn't have been able to do that. I had to be able to play, and I worked my ass off to be able to become a player to do it. But I'm grateful I was here. But boy, the organization, I just feel so indebted to for what they did for me. But again, putting there, he made the inference I wasn't fighting enough. He said, when's the last time we had a team meeting and he went around and tried to rip everybody? And he get to me, he said, when's the last time you had a fight, Chris Nyland? Man, what the fuck do you know about fighting? And I give it to him in front. Well, if Big Serge's best friend died that day, and he was going through a difficult time, and I think when, he called and, said what I said to him, I think Serge was just, he was dealing with so much other stuff. And, afterwards I came back, I was devastated. I was never the same. Yeah, I stuck up for my teammates. I still played that game. I fought to the end, all that, but I just wasn't this. I never wanted to play for another team. Honest to God, I was so invested in being a Montreal Canadian that it crushed me. It almost broke me. It didn't, but it almost did. But I stayed true to myself. And, you know, Big Surge brought me back at the end, which I appreciated for the curtain call. But, Pat Burns was the perfect coach for me. I knew him. Um, and I got to be with him his last 20 games. But, I should have been there. Perron should have been gone. I should have stayed. And I tell you, talk about the Richer thing. I talk about the Stanley Cup in '89. They had nobody. And listen, they had a good team, the Habs, but they didn't have that. Watch out, everybody. Someone's on the ice against Calgary. Calgary had a tough team, and you needed guys to be able to stand up to that. And, I always tell Serge, you might have had another cup, maybe. And so would a lot of other guys if you didn't get rid of me. And I'm not saying, oh, we definitely would have won if Chris was there, but it would have been like it was.
Yeah, 89 was a tough one when they lost it, but let's go back to when they did have you, and they did have the watch out for that guy on the ice, the 1986 team. During that cup run, when did that locker room or you in particular know we got something going here in '86?
Well, we beat Boston 3 straight. Listen, we had a great leadership core in Larry and Bob Gainey. It was like, those guys are unbelievable. They really kept the focus and got guys' attention. I remember Serge and Mr. Corey came down and spoke with us before the playoffs happened. We went through a tough run at the end of the season. And, we were like, I don't know, 2-8-2 or something. The last 12 games, we weren't playing well. Then we go into Boston, we beat them 3 straight. That game 7, Hartford, we got by Hartford. That I got to tell you, I'll never forget. They scored with less than a minute left in the game to tie it, and all the momentum for them. Right, they're gonna come out, and then old Pepe Lemieux. Now, the royal pain in the ass. And I'm gonna tell you what that kid did in the playoffs. They came 1-2 on the Conn Smythe, him and Patrick, but Claude was as big because we had a very good defensive team. We won, a President's Trophy, the least goals in the league that year, the year before. We had a very good team defensively. Lemire put that system in place. We were solid. We had Big D. And listen, Patrick, yeah, he won it, but Claude was right there. He had 5 game-winning goals, 2 overtime goals, none bigger than that Hartford one. And after that one, I'm looking, okay, not to underestimate the Rangers, but the Rangers, there was no way they were going to beat us. And we beat them 4-1. And then, going into Calgary, we said, okay, they're a big, strong, tough team, similar to us. We lose that one game at home and then ripped off 4 straight. And it was like, this team just got confidence and guys really, really were close. Back when, there wasn't much turnover. God, it was great being with a team for a long time and the same guys. And, we really like a family. And it was just awesome. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to have won a Stanley Cup because so many great players never get that sniff at it, or they've been there, they've been close and haven't got it. We won that thing and okay, maybe we'll get a shot to be back here next year. It is the toughest trophy in sports to win. Tough.
Well, I thought beat the Flyers that next year. Obviously Game 6, you and Dave Brown, who can forget that? That's just one of those classic moments, but everything looked right.
A long fight.
Yeah, that for Knuckles.
Well, it was a long bout. I remember him
looking at you,
I remember, we went a while and then we were kind of standing together at the blue line and he kind of was leaning over me and I had my head in tight on him and we're just kind of breathing a little. And he said, have you had enough? And I go, no. And I drew another shot. If we went again, it's funny. I had him on the podcast. One of the freaking sweetheart he is.
Right.
I let him down in Philly. Just a great guy, Dave Brown. But man, he come out with no fucking shirt on. I'm like, but who's gonna fight him? I can't throw him to someone else. I gotta take, I gotta take his ticket and let's go, baby. Crazy.
Chris Nyland kindly joining us. Make sure you check out his podcast. I mean, great conversations each and every week. Raw Knuckles. Give him a follow. Like him on YouTube. No doubt about that. Chris, I got to talk about, a lot of people say the 87 Canada Cup was one of the greatest hockey tournaments of all time. Maybe people don't realize this. Chris Nyland was part of it on the American team. And as my buddy Mike pointed out, only 2 Americans scored more goals than you at that tournament. You sniped a couple at that tournament, right?
It says a lot about the talent level we had, right? Well, we had good players. Here was Badger Bob. Okay, God bless him. I didn't know really Badger Bob from Adam. I got the training camp there, and we're gonna play. I think Canada like 4 times exhibition around Canada, and I remember one day after practice, we'd go in and stretch, and Badger would come around, "Great day, Malarkey, guys, great practice, and Big Joe Otto and Knuckles, you know what? You guys are going to be playing on this team." He said, "We're going to need you guys. We played Canada 5 times in pre-tournament games, and then we're going to need you for the tournament too." And I thought he was just like, the old, pat in the back, way to work, you're going to be on this team, and then I was going to get an exit stage right. But, unbeknownst to me, he was serious. And I never took it like that. I just kept working my butt off. I remember Brett Hull got cut from that team, and he wasn't happy about it. Can you imagine? He said they kept Nilan over me. Well, if you weren't such a fat fuck, Brett Hull, you might have played in the Canada Cup instead of me. And that's really what it was, because he ended up in Calgary with Badger Bob, and I think they ended up getting rid of him because he was overweight and not in shape. And when he did get in some decent shape, he ended up being one of the best goal scorers ever in the game, right? But he was a fat fuck.
Hey, Knuckles, we have a lot of people in the chat. I don't think people are aware of this. You had a great relationship with Bob Probert. As you know, he's royalty around here. It's funny. I actually had lunch with Bob just a few days before he passed. As you were talking about Dave Brown, I'm sure you'll say the same thing about Proby. Just a wonderful guy. He was a wonderful human. I don't think people realize that. But, talk about the relationship with Bob. And I know you still keep in touch with Danny, correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I keep in touch. I had her on the podcast. We talk now and again. Wonderful woman. Just a great lady. Bob and I, we have met at a alumni game somewhere. We're playing in a charity event. Got to know each other a little bit. And then we went to Afghanistan together. And then we ended up going to Abu Dhabi together before Afghanistan a second time. And we were together for like a week before we were going to Afghanistan. We played hockey in Abu Dhabi. And we're going around town with some of the expats, Canadians that were there, and we're playing hockey and with roomies, and, we're together there. Then we're together the whole week in Afghanistan. Then we came home and played like about 6 games on an alumni tour. And at the end of the tour, we were sitting having dinner, and I was talking to him and going, "Proby, we had a blast together." And I'm going, "Proby, you must be dying to get home. You had a good home cooked meal from Danny." And we're at an event with all the people who bought VIP tickets afterwards, having dinner with them. And, they have all tables. And so I'm sitting there talking to him, and I asked him that question. At the same time, someone behind me says, "Hey, Chris." And I turned around, and he was answering the question I just asked him, but I turned around and I said, "Yeah, I'll get with 1 second." And when I turned back, Proby goes, "What the fuck?" He said, "You asked me a question and you turned your back on me?" I'm like, "What?" He said, "Yeah." And he was actually angry. And then all of a sudden he stood up, and I stood up. Boom, I threw a punch, and next thing, hey, the mashed potatoes flew up off the table and ended up hitting some lady that, not the plate, but the mashed potatoes hit her right in the head. The two of us. But Roby, you know, I absolutely love him. He's like a big kid. We had a lot of fun together. We did a lot of stuff together. It's funny, Roby, I was living in Oregon after I got sober, and he called me. He was in Vancouver, and he called me. He said, "Hey, Nux." He said, "Why don't you come up and visit? Come up and visit." I said, "What do you mean, come up and visit?" He said, "I'm in Vancouver." I said, "Yeah, you're in Vancouver?" I said, "I'm like in 18 hours from you." "Why do you think I'm?" I said, "When are you going home?" This was a Saturday. He said, "Oh, I'm leaving early Monday morning." I said, "By the time I get there, you're getting on the plane." "What are you not?" "Oh, I'm just driving up, just driving up." But here's the crazy thing. This is crazy. I called him, and someone picks up the phone and answers. It's his mother-in-law. I said, "It's Bob." She said, "Who is this?" I said, "It's Chris Nyland." And she said, "Hang on 1 second." And he passed the phone to her husband. Said, "Chris, yeah, Bob's father-in-law here." He said, "We just lost Bob." I said, "What?" He said, he told me, he said, "We're out in the boat. Bob bent over to pick something up. All of a sudden he went down." He said, "I tried to save him." He was a police officer, I guess, and, or a firefighter. I'm not sure which one, but he said, "I tried to save him. I couldn't. We lost Bob." I called Bob the day he died. I can't believe it. I was shocked, like shocked. Like, how's that happen? And, I was shocked. I know I found myself a little angry with him at his funeral because, you know, there were signs. He had told me a couple times. He had told other people. He told me, he said, "Chris, I got a tightness in my chest. I think I'm smoking too many butts." I said, "Probably, it could be that. But when you got tightness, that's the first sign of a heart attack. One of the things." I said, "I have a good friend who had all that, he had open heart surgery, all that stuff." I said, go get checked." A lot of guys told me, "Go get checked." And I just, I found myself thinking that if he did go get checked, like, he'd probably still be with us, right? Because, he'd have had those, what they do today. They open up the arteries in there and angioplasty, and, you're as good as new. You get the pipes cleaned. And, anyway, it's so sad. I looked at his kids, beautiful kids, and, miss their dad. He was like another kid, right? With them, and they just freaking loved their father. He was like one of them, it was awesome. He was like that with everybody. He had his struggles in life, no question. And, I know a lot of people judge, right? They judge. Um, but, addiction is a real thing, and not, it's not a moral issue. A lot of people, when they suffer from addiction, um, they have a hard time to stop. It's not easy to stop. People say just stop, but it's like Nancy Reagan said, just say no to drugs. It doesn't work that way. And, Bob struggled at times, and then, he got well and things were going pretty good for him. And then it's just a shame. I love that guy. Yeah.
I'm going to let Mike have the last word. We promised we'd get you out of here. Can't thank you enough. Come see Nux and the Rangers alumni April 27th at Big Boy Arena. Somebody in the chat wanted to say congrats on your sobriety, Knuckles. 14 years for me. That comes from Tony. I know how important that is for you. And I think on behalf of a lot of people who have watched you, it's fantastic to see what you're doing now, Nuck, and what you're doing with the podcast, and certainly what you were doing with the radio station as well in Montreal. So props to you for that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it.
And sticking with addiction, if I could, like we said, we had somebody pipe in, 14 years clean for them. I follow you on social media, and I've heard you say one of the hardest things you ever did was ask for that help. Was there any advice you had for anyone that might be listening tonight that is struggling with it, or a family member might be struggling with addiction?
Yeah, it's difficult to ask for help. And, a lot of people, that stigma of mental health. Oh, there's something wrong with you. I mean, it's okay. If you have an issue and you're worried you feel you can't go to someone, there's somebody in life that you trust, that you love, that you care about. And when you're in trouble, you have to be able to find somebody you can go to and say, listen, I need help. I am struggling. I'm addicted to these pills. I'm drinking my life's a mess. Can you help me? And man, it's amazing how many people will be willing to help. Some people aren't equipped and they don't understand addiction. I get it, but you got to go to someone you trust. And then, man, the best thing you could ever do for yourself is make that phone call, and some people, they're so scared to do it, what's on the other side, but it's the best thing I ever did. Like I said, I got introduced to, um, treatment and recovery by going to, a treatment center back in the year 2000. I didn't get it the first time. I didn't get it the second time. And when I realized that, it was a program of action, not so much intellect, I was then and only then, able to stay sober on a daily basis. I almost lost my life in 2015 because I went out one night. Matter of fact, I did, but I was brought back, and I've been sober now 8 years. I should really, when I look back, if I did it right the first time, well, that was 24 years ago. If I did it right the second time, that was 14 years ago. So this is my longest stretch of sobriety from 2015, 2007, 2015 till now. And I understand now what I have to do and how I have to go about staying sober on a daily basis. And I do that now. So yeah, if you're struggling, there's no shame in it. You know, pick up that phone, go to someone you love and care about, or someone you trust, and ask for that help. You'll get it.
One of the toughest that ever did it can go ask for help. You can as well. Chris, we're so proud of you. Thank you for the time. Can't wait to see you once again, Big Boy Arena, Rangers alumni, Wings alumni. That is April 27th. They're going to put on a show. It's for a great cause. I'd love to sit here and talk about the heater that Nick Suzuki's on right now because I don't think people around the league get it. We'll keep that to ourselves, Chris, okay?
Yeah, I tell you, there's one thing that team has to learn, and that's defense in their own end.
Yeah, amen to that.
Yes.
By the way, a special shout out to you, a guy that I did a radio show with and I consider a friend. Darren McCarty says 11, 11, 15 here. See you through nothing.
Awesome. Yeah, D-Mac. Awesome. Yeah, it'd be great to see him. I can't wait. That's awesome. Matter of fact, he's got to get his ass on my podcast. I had Lemieux on, and I got to have him on. That's for sure.
All right, I'll work on that. I'll send D-Mac a text afterwards. Chris, can't thank you enough for the time.
Cool.
Really enjoy the podcast. It talks about so many different things. Keep up the great work, and we look forward to seeing you here in Detroit on April 27th.
We'll see you in the Motor City, boys.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris
Thank you.
Knuckles Nyland kindly joined us here. What a great conversation. Boy, what a great guy, isn't he?
Wow.
Unbelievable. Well, you know this.
Yes.
Okay, I even sent this to Chris last week. You and I go down YouTube rabbit holes.
Oh,
And I found that video of his return game to Montreal in '92.
yes.
How
Return
cool was that
yes.
footage,
That-
right?
That
and
is
people were
unbelievable.
just going crazy because Nuts came back.
And if you guys haven't tuned into that podcast, you want to talk about something that'll lead you down some rabbit holes,
Oh.
it is that podcast. I spent all the other night, it was either the Brawl in the Hall, the Good Friday Massacre, and then honestly, you got to check out his Instagram. I know you're not on Instagram, but you got Knuckles Nyland cooking chicken parmesan on there. The guy is just social media gold.
It's funny. I was last summer. I think it was last summer. It may have been in the fall. I actually sent a tweet to D-Mac and Knuckles, and I was like, "You want to talk?" And Blake, you worked with D-Mac. You know D-Mac. D-Mac and Knuckles. That might break the record on the internet. Get those two together. Get them going together. Oh my, how about you do it right here? Matt, can you do your old pal a favor? No, could you imagine? You know what? I just sit back like this and listen to those guys go. Are you kidding me? The stories they could
was
throw?
like that story. Could you imagine being overseas like that with Probert and Nilan
And
at
potatoes
dinner,
flying.
and all of a sudden it's like a food fight because he turned his back on him? I mean, the stories can't write themselves like that. That is unbelievable.
Oh, see, Blake's always the businessman. Blake said, this is true. He goes, when you have a chance, make sure you say, any new listeners or viewers like the video and share. See, I don't pay attention to stuff like that, right? So thank you, Blake. I appreciate it. Hey, can we talk about local hockey for just a second?
Okay.
And I want to talk to you about my friends at the Rockers. Another big weekend. Speaking of Big Boy Arena, make sure that you join them for a weekend of rock and hockey with the Motor City Rockers. How about this, Mike? Friday night, dollar hot dog night as the Rockers take on the Waterton Wolves. Then on Saturday, catch a doubleheader with the Red Wing alumni facing off against the Michigan Warriors at 2 o'clock, followed by the Rockers taking on the Wolves at 6:05. A portion of the ticket sales will benefit the Michigan Warriors Disabled Veterans Hockey Program. And then Sunday, you got to love those triple headers.
Yes.
March 10th, Rockers go head-to-head with the Blue Ridge Bobcats. 2:05 start time. Enjoy the best deal of the weekend. 2 tickets, a bucket of beer for just $40. Finish your weekend with a bang with the Motor City Rockers. For all ticket questions, please contact Connor Jukacki by phone or email at 313-944-0625 and Connor at rockershockey.com. And it sounds like my old buddy Neil Rule is dropping the puck on Friday. Oh, that's good.
Oh.
Thank you for that information, Tammy. That's pretty cool. Yes, I plan to set that up. I want Knuckles and McCarty. And listen, I'm not going to say a damn word. Are you kidding? Go. Really, just say
There's
go.
nothing that you could say.
Oh, isn't he a beauty?
That
Gosh.
that is, like you said, the
gosh.
stories that would just start running there would be unbelievable.
So, we mentioned this. I want to Puddinhead for people out there that don't know.
Greatest
The
nickname.
greatest nickname ever. Puddinhead is former Canadiens coach Jean Perrin. And yeah, I don't think time has healed those wounds. Well, is that a fair statement?
Oh, you could feel it.
I don't think time has
No.
healed those wounds. Oh, was I devastated when they sent him to Rangers? I'm just devastated.
Oh,
Just,
I mean,
I was so pissed off.
but he was, as he said it, like the heart of that team, that pulse that you need in certain times. And back then, again, he was saying people don't understand what hockey was back then the way it is now. You needed him in the playoffs. It was a nasty, hard game to play. And without Chris Nyland there, you were saying, what happened?
Michael Telvin. Oh, and Rajon Lemelin. Remember, he stood on top of his head. Knuckles should have been there. Let me ask you, Blake and I were talking about this the other day. You weren't
Okay.
with us. The Wings' last couple of games. Lessons, reason to be concerned, especially with the injury situation now in Colorado looming. You don't want to read too much into it. What's your feel with what happened the last couple games?
Well, you got to wait for it. I mean, it's going to be a tough read with Larkin out, but let's see what they do. It's one of these games. It's a litmus test. Now you're going to Colorado, who is going to be extra pumped up. They just made a couple of trades today to get some guys. They won't be in the lineup, but they're going to be ready. They're making their move. What do you look like tonight? Because we had them way up here. We were getting excited. Blake, I bought in. I bought in. All of a sudden, I'm back on the bandwagon, and it's been a couple of turns. It's just less than, but that also happens during the season. What I say, they never seem out of it. They never seem to back down. They don't seem to panic. They're down right now. I'm not concerned about it, but if it continues, you got guys coming up here that want to make the playoffs, right?
Mhm.
There's gonna be a push. What is this? 8 points up, 6 points up on a couple of teams. You can't lose too many.
Desperation hockey.
It will get there, but because I'll tell you, I know you're watching games every night. Watching games every night, like Knuckles said, regular season hockey is boring. We're starting to get into playoff time basically
100%.
right now. The intensity is picked up. Hate is starting to pick up, and these teams are starting to run for it. Some teams are going to make a push with some trades. So
More on that in just a second.
I'm
Trust me.
not worried yet though. But they have to put a team because again, I don't expect them to beat Colorado, but what do they have? Was it 4-0 against Florida?
Mhm.
Come on. You got it.
Speaking of Florida, if you've watched this show from week 1, you've heard us both talk up Florida, and everybody was talking Rangers, and everybody was talking Boston. We both like Florida. Florida has done nothing but make us look smart, which isn't easy to do. They've been on a tear, and they just graduated to full-fledged wagon today, picking up Tarasenko. I
Absolutely.
mean, are they just loaded?
The guy at work came busting in my office today, and he is so mad. Blake, you'll get this. He's screaming, "They're 8-1. Why didn't I buy in when you did? You got them at 25-1." Yes, I do. And yes, they got Tarasenko. What's he going to give him? Like, Tarasenko is one of those finicky players. You never quite know what you're going to get from him.
No, and you know what? You don't have to either. I think he fits in there where you're not
Second
asking
line.
him. Yeah, exactly. You're not asking him to be the stud. Hey, can we talk about legacy really quickly? And I have a challenge for each and every one of you out there. Just call them for a quote. I'll bet you, I'd be willing to bet that their quote is lower than what you got right now because thousands of Metro Detroiters have already called Legacy Partners to help with their homes and auto insurance. Our friends at Legacy Partners are one of Southeast Michigan's top independent insurance agents. They provide a full-service, one-stop solution for all of your insurance needs, personal and business, large and small. They have helped many of our listeners by fixing mistakes other agents have made, asking the right questions to get the right coverage put in place to properly protect you. Yeah, and save you some money. Chances are, if you haven't checked your policy in the last year, you're paying too much and you could also be underinsured. What are you waiting for? Just put them to the test. Seriously, call for a quote. You'll find out. Give Legacy Partners a chance to help with your home, your cars, life insurance, Medicare enrollment, or your business insurance needs. Call them today, 586-209-4106. That's 586-209-4106. Or visit legacypartnersins.com to get started with your new quotes. Put them to the test. Seriously, just call and ask for a quote. I bet you it's lower. Mike, this is a special time for guys like you and I. High school semifinals start tomorrow at USA Hockey Arena. And you know, it's funny. I should have talked to Knuckles about this. Maybe next time. And there'll be a next time. But he's being a Boston boy. He's a big fan of high school hockey. And that's a cool thing. But to say that high school hockey's improved in our state in the last 10 years is a gross understatement. It is an absolute spectacle being out at USA Hockey Arena this weekend. Can't wait for it.
Absolutely. And if you haven't gotten an idea what high school hockey is, or if you're questioning high school hockey level of talent, we have 6 of the top 10 players from that you guys had on your list out there that are going to be there this weekend. I think 5 or 6 of the goalies that were on the top 10 list are going to be out there. Some of the top players are going to be out there starting tomorrow. I'm going right from work. I told you I'm going to go. I'm going to get some chicken wings, and I'm getting right in there for the 5:00 start. There's other reasons why I'm excited about this too, but outside of that, this is just the time of the
Am I
year.
allowed to say it or should I shut up?
You can say it. Go ahead.
Mike's son plays for Detroit Catholic Central, the #1 team in the state. Darn good player. Shout out to Sebi. But hey, it's not a given. They haven't lost in state in over 2 years, the Shamrocks. And look, this is going to be a test this weekend, whether it be Reith's Puffer, whether it be the winner of the Clarkston-Brighton matchup. Nothing is easy at this level, but that's just one of the storylines to check. It starts tomorrow, USA Hockey Arena, 5:00. Division II semifinals are tomorrow, and then Division III early in the morning on Friday. Houghton gets things started. What a great matchup. Houghton and Cranbrook getting things started, and then the Division I finals start at 5:00. Catholic Central and Muskegon Reese Buffer.
Yep, that's going to be a good one. I listened to you earlier today as I was driving home talking about their style of play. And
football team on skates is what was described to me.
And I've gotten contacted about that just to say, what do you think? And I can't wait to see it. You know what I think about the Detroit Catholic Central team and how heavy they can play. And I think they welcome some of that. So I think that's going to be another great game. I think some people don't know the Reese Puffer name and that they're thinking they're just going to look right by them. I think it's going to be a good game.
It's a great story when you start to change teams up, Lakeland punching their ticket and
Yep.
Clarkston finally punching through. They've been so good the last few years. And certainly, as you mentioned, Muskegon, Reese Puffer, it's a great story to see some of those teams find a way to USA Hockey. And if you get a chance, give it a chance. I think if you're watching the show, you're a hockey fan, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised about the brand of hockey that you see here in the state of Michigan. We're proud of it. I think it's a great product. I think that it's starting to get to the points of other states. And before you spit the other M word at me, may I remind you that Team Michigan beat Team Minnesota just last spring. Just letting you know. Just letting you know. Just letting you know.
And if you want another idea of how it's grown, get to those games late because you're not getting in.
Oh.
The Saturday will be 4,500. They'll let some standing room people in. It has been, especially when the local central teams kind of get in there. But the West Side brings their team. Houghton's got buses of people. And it's going to be sold out. So if you get there late, you might not get in. And it is, we've said it every year for the last however many years we've been there. It's an unbelievable atmosphere when you get there.
More on that in just a second. I have a true story to tell. But first, let me tell you about my friends, the brothers, right? Mike and Jeff. What would I do without Mike and Jeff? And not only are they great friends, but they're also like my old next door neighbors. And oh, by the way, my financial advisors. If you're ready to take charge of your financial future, look no further than the Wealth Advantage Group located in historic downtown Northville, owned by two brothers with over 20 years of industry experience. They understand that your financial goals are as unique as you are. That's why they offer personalized expert guidance to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning. Now, whether you're saving for retirement, getting ready to sell your company, or already in retirement, they can and will help guide you through every step of your financial journey. They work with clients throughout all stages of life and have clients in over 20 states. The investment world, it is a complex one. So if you are ready to start taking your finances more seriously, it might be time to call the experts. Reach out to my boys at the Wealth Advantage Group at 248-773-8574. Visit their website at www.thewealthadv.com. See, look at and Mike's there. See how I always mention the handsome guys, all right? Mike, can you put their picture back up just for a second? Can you put their picture back up? Yeah, there we go. See Mike on the left, Jeff on the right. There you go. Wealth Advantage Group, they're going to take care of you. So, Mike, we were telling the story on State Champs, one of the hats that I wear. A few years ago, I don't remember what year it is. All the years run together, but I think it was one of the years where the Whalers were still there.
Yep.
It was a final between CC and Brighton. And I kid you not, the place was so packed that Mike Vellucci, are you familiar with his work? Mike Vellucci, who at the time was the general manager and coach of the Plymouth Whalers, went on to be the assistant GM with Carolina, now an assistant coach with Pittsburgh, said, we have to shut the door. Like, we can't let anybody else in. Like, we're like, seriously, fire marshals and everything. So to your point, a bunch of people just thought that they'd arrive late, including a bunch of coaches. And so they call me. They call me and they're like, Legion, you know that door downstairs that like nobody can get to? Well, you kind of have all access because you work for the Whalers and everything. Can you go downstairs? So, Mike, I'm sorry. Now I can confess this to you if you're watching. Please don't get mad at me. I had to sneak downstairs to let people in. Like, no joke. I had to.
You broke the law.
Vellucci, I'm so sorry. But seriously, I had to sneak downstairs. Like, and I'm not going to mention like prominent coaches were like, dude, I can't get in. Can you help me in? I had to help like multiple. I don't want to say how many, but I had to help multiple people. Ben said, was it 2015? It might have been 2015, but it was, maybe it was the last year of the Whalers there, but I had to go. There was an old back door back in the parking lot where we would park, the people that work there. And I just kind of, hurry up in. I don't want to get fired and everything. So really, it's a great time. Get out there and support a great, great product. Mike, your big takeaway so far from the trade deadline, anything jump out to you?
The one that when I walked in was the Noah Hannafin trade. That caught me off guard.
And it happened like
dinner. That. Yeah. What is going to be my big thing is I'm just waiting on And there's a couple of reasons why I'm waiting on this Jake Gensel thing to come through is because of the rumors that were starting to leak out today involving Vancouver, where they're going to send Lindholm, who they just got and gave up picks for, to Boston, and then they're going to get Gensel. The problem with this is, and this is the question, do you trust Dubas to do the right thing
No.
with Gensel? I mean, isn't that fun? Like,
No.
every time I hear it, I'm like, wow, Pittsburgh's asking a haul and could get a haul here for Gensel, who's a nice player. There's no way he can hold it off.
I don't think he can either. Well, and it's funny, Tammy said still waiting for Mr. Yzerman. I think that it's too rich. I think Steve Yzerman is a smart and shrewd general manager, and I think some of the things that are being tossed around right now are just too rich. Now, listen, something could present itself, and Steve is the master of pulling a great deal. But I think right now, I think some of the asking prices are a little too rich. I don't expect anything.
Right. And is this going to continue into Friday? Like when we were texting each other today and it just came hot and fast. I mean, I sent you a picture of
In
the
seconds.
flash, like boom.
In seconds.
All of a sudden there's four or five trades. And that was including, I think there's one yesterday, like 21 hours. I think they said there was 5 trades, which came out of nowhere. So I don't know. Like I said, they've been bantering around Bergeron or whatever, however you say. The guys like that's their big. What do you?
No, that's exactly.
What much are you gonna do?
It's like, remember back in the day when I was doing the Ice Time show, we would do that bit called "You Be the GM," and more often than not, if somebody called in and made me a deal, I'd hang up on them because it's like, we'll give you Matthew Dandino and like a 5th round pick, and you give us Jaromir Jagr, and I just hang up the phone.
It's funny. I don't know if you were checking social media the other day where it started coming up with the Brady Tkachuk rumors, where there's such a split.
You can't be that stupid.
They said there's such a split in that locker room between the leadership guys, Brady being one of them, the younger guys, and then the coaches and the staff and stuff like that, that something had to happen, and it was Brady Tkachuk's name kept coming up.
You can't be that stupid.
That would be one of your bits.
But you can't be that stupid.
What do you have to give up for? First of all, you can't be that stupid. You are correct. But what would you have to give up? Like no one's willing to give that up because what are they? Oh, we'll give him Bergeron and a 5th round pick.
By the way, Scott Husak said, love those guys. Well, I love the Fighting Irish as well. His son, heck of a player for Father Gabriel Richard, the Irish. Clint Robert, great job this season. I know it didn't end the way that you guys like, but looking forward to what Easton has next year as well. Listen, we have one more read before we get out of here. I want to thank Chris Nyland. I want to thank my buddy Dave Rieger and my buddy Blake as well, both from WJR. Did I have to mention it? Even if you guys are behind the scenes? Nice to see my friend Dave Rieger. Even though every time he comes over here, I feed him, and he's like, you are the worst cook in the history of mankind. He just doesn't like my food.
They didn't eat.
Every time. He took a rib, and then he threw the rest of it to my dogs. And Blake, I think you're number 1 as well. I want to tell you about my friend Lindsay Broadwell. When it's time for you to make that big move, whether you are buying, selling, or both, you need to contact the agent that I recommend. That's Lindsay Broadwell. Your house is probably the biggest investment you will ever make, and that's why you need a pro. Lindsay grew up here on the main streets of Northville and has expanded her team all over Southeast Michigan. She's an expert, all facets of business. When it's time to move, our friend Lindsay and her team will make sure you get the most out of your house and that everything goes smoothly when finding your new home. Buyers, sellers, even first-time buyers, make sure you contact Lindsay at BroadwellHomes.com. She will help you with everything from start to close. A licensed realtor at Real Broker LLC. Start your search today at BroadwellHomes.com. I want to thank my buddy Todd as well. Most importantly, thank you. If you're new to the show, well, I hope you liked it. We're just 2 guys that have known each other for a long time. We like hockey. I think you can tell we're a little passionate about it. I'm a Rain Man about it. He knows that. Like, you can name a year. I can tell you who won the Stanley Cups, Conn Smythe. Some people call that a nerd. So we've been doing this for a long 30 some odd years. We've been BSing about hockey, and we like to BS with you. Tell your friends about it. Blake, what else do I have to say?
Like share.
It, share it. What else do I? Here, Blake, you turn on your dumb mic.
Share, like the page.
Okay.
Check out Off the Air.
Check out Off the Air.
That one's good too.
Yeah.
There's another guy on that show.
Really
it's
handsome
pretty
young
good.
lad. Really
a
handsome
very
young lad.
handsome college football aficionado.
Yes. All right. For my buddy Mike Ivesell, I want to say, most importantly, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. We have a special guest for you. Can I say it right now?
Please.
Sergio Momesso. Sergio Momesso is going to be joining us.
Oh.
So we look forward to chatting with him. And trust me when I say we have some other big names coming up. Really? No. Really, we do. I swear.
I've heard rumors.
In the meantime, we'll talk to you soon. See ya.
What the Puck, featuring Sean Belegian. Produced by Todd Losey and Blake Matrazek. Executive produced by Sean Belegian and Todd Losey. Theme song and incidental music by Elliot Middleton. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe to What the Puck on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Got something to say to Sean? Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.